honesty about how hard this is actually a lifeline for other people. I have found that by my being honest about how hard the job search was, there were people on a regular basis that were going, I thought I was alone. I thought I was the only person that I had one person tell me that I'm the reason that he didn't kill himself. If there's an employer out there that is not going to hire you because you're willing to say that, good, better for you. Because as I said to one, and this is the last time I ever got this malicious advice myself, because one person's like, you are closing doors. I said, if I have to censor myself to get the job, I have to censor myself to keep the job. And I have to continue to be a doormat just to stay employed. I don't want that.
Layoffs, ghost jobs, AI. These are unprecedented times. Trying to find a job in the professional world, especially the tech sector, has never been harder. It seems the social contracts around job seeking have been all but torn up in pursuit of profits.
At the same time, there are plenty of folks out there finding new careers every day. Whether through strong networking, creative approaches to job applications, or just sheer determination, there are those who have gone through the long, difficult job hunt and found success on the other end.
I'm Jason C. McDonald.
And I'm Michael Tharrington. This is On the Board, where we interview everyday people who've successfully landed jobs during the discouraging employment landscape of the last 2 years.
No out-of-touch influencers and dubious pay-to-win schemes here, just real experiences and practical insights.
Hey folks, we're back for the final episode of On the Board. And good news, Jason and I both now have jobs. So I am the Director of Customer Success and Community at Ordinal. And Jason?
And I'm a senior full stack web developer at Simplify.
Yeah, so woohoo, it's official. We're both happily employed now. Oh, speaking for myself, I should say, I think Jason is quite happy too to be
Yeah,
employed.
I am. Yeah, I am. Yeah, it's a good company. I enjoy the role.
Yeah. And we just felt like this podcast was kind of coming to its natural conclusion, but we kind of wanted to do something special for y'all, and we figured that we would interview each other, talk about our experiences of being off the market and looking for jobs and the tips that we picked up along the way. So that's what
Yeah,
we're up to.
absolutely. In a way, it's kind of like a summary of everything. Because one of the reasons we started this was to get tips for ourselves and our own job searches. Because for like the whole of season one, and then or at least part of season two, we were still searching. So I started in my role back in February of this year. And then Michael, you finally, so you had sort of started, and then you transitioned into a full time. When was that?
That's right. I started my contract role in September of last year, so of 2024, and I officially became a full-time employee. Pretty much, I think it was also September, so it was a full year after I started working my contract. And that's really, I mean, just to get into a little bit of advice, I guess, if those contract opportunities come up, I was just working a few hours here and there for Ordinal at the time, but I got to build a relationship. I got to be there early and see sort of the progression of the company. And when those positions became available and open, I was, top of mind for them. And I let them know regularly, like, hey, I want to join y'all full time. When can we make this happen? And they were telling me that like they wanted to make it happen too, but I had to be patient. It was a year and 3 months, after losing my job, my full-time job with Dev, that it took me to get my job with Ordinal. So it can take a little while. And yeah, but I'm happy to be where I'm at now, and things are going well. So
Yeah. And for me, I found mine ultimately. Interestingly, I also after a contract position, but with a completely unrelated group. So I had posted in January because I was literally running out of financial runway, and I posted to LinkedIn that look, I'm weeks out from homeless. I need help. I need anything, and but because I think one of the things that someone pointed out, having heard a lot of the podcast, pointed out is he said it seems like every episode the takeaway is network. And that really is it, for better or worse. I mean, that's it. And I had this LinkedIn network I've been curating for years. And I was starting to despair of it actually going anywhere, because like I kept working it, working it, working it, didn't seem to get anywhere. But for whatever reason, this time, someone said, "Hey, I need someone to do a 1 month contract," and it's like just in time to pay my bills, just in time to get everything squared away, and give myself a little more runway. And then before that contract was even done, I get contacted by um, Pat, who's now my boss, and he just goes, "Hey, would you interview for this role?" So what had happened is my post had been liked by, and I don't mind throwing some names out because I'm really grateful to these people. Jay Yapel, who is a just a hilarious and inspiring person on LinkedIn, very much marches to the beat of her own drum. I really enjoy following what she does. And she shared it. Well, she had in her network Craig, who was the boss of Pat, my boss. And so Jay shares it, and then it lands in Craig's feed, and then Craig sees it, goes, "Hey Pat, take a look at this guy," and Pat goes, "Hey, he'd be a good fit," and I get emailed. So like it really is networking. That
Yeah.
that's literally is the secret sauce. As frustrating as that can be when you feel like you don't have a network, but and I'll come back around to that, but it is possible to build one, even like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? It is
Right.
possible to build.
Oh, it's totally possible. And there's other people out there in your same position and other people who aren't, that are also just looking constantly to network and to build their group. And it's what, like the Kevin Bacon effect or whatever they say it is.
Mhm.
That's like, we're all just a couple people away from each other.
The degree of separation.
But yes, there you go. Yeah. But I mean, and when it comes to networking, like that's how things happen. Jason, you came to me with the idea for this podcast. You networked with me because I was community manager and I was networking with a bunch of other people. So it's uh, just about connection, and you're not, unless you're going to, start your own business or do something completely solo. You're going to need other people if you want to have a job and a livelihood and
Mhm.
to work. So I think that is just a major part of the experience, and something that we heard from everybody that we interviewed. Like you said, that was
Yeah.
the regular answer.
Yeah. Well, and even if you were going to start your own business, it's because, we talked to some people on this show who had gone that route, but also, I mean, the number of people I've seen that have started their own businesses, and they were having to do things. They were having to do this networking to build their business, because where are you going to find not only employees and contractors to help you do the stuff you can't do, investors, um, customers, advocates, who where else are you going to find these people? Like, you have to have a degree of reputation with them built up so that you can draw from that. And because it's because none of us like cold contact. Like, nobody likes cold contact. Hi, I am someone you've never met before. Can you do this thing for me that really is just about me? We're probably all going to delete that email. It's just, and I've even seen recently there have been a number of people who, even while they are happy to help people in their network find positions, they don't like it. I certainly don't like it when I get an email from somebody that I've never met or just randomly connected with me on LinkedIn, has no relationship, and then it's like, "Hey, could you recommend me for this job?" I'm like, I
Right.
no, not because I don't like you, but because I don't have a history. I don't know anything about you. I can't stake my reputation on you if I have no history.
I think that's a really good point. And also a very good point about folks starting their own business. So you absolutely need to network if you're going to get clients, if you're going to hire people. But going back to what you were just saying, You can't go from 0 to 100 with like a relationship, you know. When you, I saw a friend recently who had shared like an experience. It was actually some messages just because this person was constantly pestering them on LinkedIn and saying things that were like just very treating them like they had known each other their whole life, you know. And my friend had not messaged them back at all. It was a salesperson who was trying to get them into something. But it was just, you know, they were relentless and they tried to instantly go for asking for a favor, you know, rather than trying to sort of naturally build that relationship, you know. And it can feel like you know, you sometimes you do have to go out on a limb and build relationships with people you don't know, but there's ways you can approach that are more tactful. You know, you can look at their comments and react and interact with what they're sharing and read, you know, what they're writing or watch videos that they're putting out. You can talk to them about, you know, why you find what they're doing interesting. Just be a natural person when you're going to meet new people, and you'll have a lot more success, and you'll also build a lot more genuine connections with people. I think you'll have more fun doing it too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something about mutuality that's important in networking, and that's something that I learned more about. I knew it conceptually, but like putting in those terms, something I picked up from my friend Joshua Jacobs, who I had on one of my other podcasts, the Bug Hunters Cafe. I had Boyan and I had Joshua as a guest, and he's a he's like the wizard of networking. Like he's amazing at just connecting people and building his own network, but he always talks about both parties in a networking connection need to have some benefit. So a lot of times what you have to do when you want to connect with someone is think about how can I benefit them? And it kind of has to be that balance, you know, don't go for the big thing right off the bat. It has to be balanced, give and take, and it has to be reasonable for the amount of time you've known them. Um, I have my misgivings about social media, including and especially LinkedIn right now, but I will say that some of the people on there that I have benefited the most from being connected with them in both tangible and intangible ways are people that I met simply because they were commenting on my post and I was commenting on theirs. And it became where their name was just a staple in my feed. Like I scroll through my feed or my notifications and oh, there's that name and I recognize them and they're consistently the person who finds my stupid joke at 4 in the afternoon funny or has some snarky comeback to something I say, or maybe I'm always putting the well actually addendum on their statement, and they always find that interesting and springboard off of that. And those are the relationships that actually become the most interesting, I think. And I was never going for anything big from them, just you know that sort of mutual connection. There seems to be two entirely different spaces on LinkedIn. I mean, arguably more, but you could almost polarize it down to you have cringe LinkedIn, which is the, you know, I just, you know, had my spleen removed. Here's 6 things that taught me about, you know, business to business sales group,
Yeah.
you know, where it's like, it's just AI regurgitated, you know, it's the same 200 influencers just liking each other. And
Sure, yeah.
you get this weird sense that you're just kind of walked into this sort of mass hallucination. And then you have the part that I refer to, that actually the group itself refers to as weird LinkedIn. And weird LinkedIn is where it's called weird LinkedIn because it's all the stuff that isn't business. You know, this is not Facebook. All the posts that tick people off, they say this is not Facebook. That's weird LinkedIn. But weird LinkedIn has been an island of sanity in an otherwise insane market, I've noticed, for a lot of people, because It's the one space where you can walk in and find out, A, no, you're not crazy. The entire world has actually gone insane. And B, it's not worth dwelling on. Here's a picture of a cat. So
Yeah.
survival is what weird LinkedIn is, and I find it more helpful to lean into that part and just start like I literally have just started unfollowing the sort of the cringe LinkedIn stuff because it just I don't want to read about one more. I stopped thinking and to let AI do it for me. And here's 15 ways that benefited my life. Please like and subscribe. I don't want to see that.
Yeah, I think, like maybe I'm sure everybody gets their own benefits from different parts, but I do feel like the sort of self-help sort of stuff that's out there in general, or just kind of like, piling on with the listicles and the things like the I don't know, the eye-catching headlines and all that sort of stuff does just feel like it doesn't feel it feels contrived, it feels fake in many ways. I think just be yourself and it's cool to post about what you're doing and what your goals are for your career. I think there's a lot more mileage in that sort of stuff than there is and trying to take on the influencer persona and to try to
Yeah.
post what you think you're supposed to post or what you
Mm.
think employers want to hear from you. Because remember, like, that employers are people too, and they're there's people that are hiring managers that we actually interviewed a great hiring manager last season, but hiring managers are looking for other genuine people too, and they can see through. They see what we're seeing as well, and they can see through that fake influencer persona. So
Yeah.
dial that down and just and be yourself. And not every place is going to hire you for being yourself, but you're going to find a place that appreciates you for you. And then when you go to work, you can be yourself confidently there and live up to the persona that you have put out there because it's you.
Hmm. Yeah. No, that was there was some. I almost want to call it malicious advice that I got when I was job searching. And I've seen other people since then continue to get it, and thankfully I've started seeing more pushback against this malicious advice too, um, which is oh, don't post that. That's going to potentially scare off employers. And I'm not talking about like legitimately bad stuff. I'm talking about just like this is hard type stuff. Like I'm struggling in this area, or because like honesty about how hard this is actually a lifeline for other people. I have found that by my being honest about how hard the job search was, there were people on a regular basis that were going, I thought I was alone. I thought I was the only person that I had one person tell me that I'm the reason that he didn't kill himself. So it's knowing that it's not you. We're not crazy. It actually is really strange right now. Just the daily frustrations that because if it's frustrating you, it probably is frustrating somebody else, and it can be helpful to say, you know what, I got a really unpleasant, and you don't have to give names, you don't have to, plaster everything, but you can still say, you know what, I got a really disingenuous email from a recruiter, and it really bugged me, and here's what they said, and I feel like we should be able to do better. Say it. Go ahead and say it. It's okay. Someone else is thinking it. And you
Yeah,
know what? If there's an employer out there that is not going to hire you because you're willing to say that, good. Better for you.
right.
Because as I said to one, and this is the last time I ever got this malicious advice myself, because one person's like, you are closing doors. I said, if I have to censor myself to get the job, I have to censor myself to keep the job.
Right.
And I have to continue to be a doormat just to stay employed. I don't want that. I want a job like the one I have where like I'm a little bit spicy, not too much, but I am a bottle of sriracha in a sour cream world, and I find that actually that is appreciated. My candor is appreciated in the workplace because I wind up saying the thing that everybody else is thinking, and then everyone's able to go, "Oh, you mean I'm not the only one thinking that?" And then the collective response is, "Oh, well, how can we make that better?" And everybody benefits from it. It's a positive. There's a positive feedback loop in my workplace that I like being a part of. I don't have to tiptoe around. Had I been the timid, reticent, person that recruiters seem to want, of, okay, well, you can just treat me like garbage and I will never say a word, I would probably be at an employer that expected me to take a boot in the neck every day, and I would hate it.
Well, I think it's interesting, we're talking about being yourself and expressing even stuff that might be a little bit difficult to express or taboo to some people, just basically expressing when you have feelings that you're struggling or that you're having a hard time, which shouldn't be taboo by any means. But I like hearing you right now, sort of talking about, getting to be spicy at work and getting to be yourself. And I'm wondering how that comes out, or if that comes out in interviews, or if you felt like when you had to, when you were in the interviewing stage over the past year before you got your job now with Simplify, or even during the interview with Simplify, if you felt like you needed to sort of temper that and quell that during the interview, or I guess maybe not, but there's also too like the nerves of being in an interview and just feeling kind of
Yeah.
shy with new people you meet too. But I'm wondering how you felt about, or if that sort of, if you had any opportunities to kind of be a little spicy in the interviews and how that might have come out for you.
Yeah, I've found that it is beneficial just to be my work self in the interview, especially because I'd rather they know what they're gonna get. Like, if they don't like me, if I'm not the spice for them, then that's probably better for us to figure out then than to discover later that we need to part ways. And I know that scared some people off, but I have found an odd correlation that there have been a number of times where I almost wound up working for astronomer. Almost. Like, I dodged that bullet. If anyone is trying to remember what that was, the Coldplay concert CEO affair guy,
Oh, okay.
astronomer. I would have been a manager, a senior manager at. I dodged that bullet massively. And you know, I find it interesting because I think I must have not come across well to whoever interviewed me, as not being much of a pushover, because I got the weird response of, "Well, you don't have enough management experience." I'm like, "I've been doing it for 10 years. What were you looking for?" It's like,
They were like, we can't hire this guy. He's going to be a whistleblower. He's gonna rat
yeah,
the lights out.
exactly. And I've had a couple times in my career where I got weird responses. I remember one. I think the one I laughed the hardest at was the one where I passed the technical interview with four software engineers, senior software engineers at the company, with flying colors. I said, I know I passed with flying colors because they said, "Oh my gosh, we cannot wait to bring you on. Hey, it's so cool. You wrote that Python book. This other guy's an author too. You guys are going to get on great. We're going to do this and this is going to be." They were just like on and on and on. They were just bubbling, bubbling. Programmers don't typically do that fake. Like,
Yeah.
that's just, we don't have the hardware for that. We're just kind of, we are the way we are. And after that, the day after that, I got an email from HR at this company, and they go, "Well, the technical team felt there were some red flags. You don't have enough Python experience. You need to get some more years of Python experience." It's like, I am a literal published expert in Python. Like, that is,
That does not compute with what you heard from the team themselves.
yeah. It's like, no, that's not what they said. I guarantee that's not what they said, because it doesn't match. But I've had those experiences where and so I would also encourage anyone who's like walks out of the interview going, "What were they talking about?" That doesn't seem. There are a lot of reasons not to hire someone that are just outright illegal and or unethical. And they won't come out and say, well, I'm sorry, we can't hire you. You're too old, or you're too disabled, or you're too honest, or you have too much integrity, or you're the wrong skin color, or whatever. They can't say that. So when you're walking out of an interview, you're just going, they said that, and that does not make any logical sense. I'm not talking about like minor things where maybe you just didn't come across. I'm talking about like major, like where did that come from?
Right.
It's not you at that point. It's them, and they can't tell the truth, so they have to make something up, and they're not good at. In general, people aren't good at making that one up. But I digress to answer your direct question, Michael. Yeah, I have my work persona in interviews too, and um, I found out really quickly that I could do the sort of I could gel really well with the natural banter that was on this team, and I have gelled really well.
Well, you know that is not my general flavor of spice, though I do enjoy it from other people. It's just not something I'm able to conjure up that well myself. But I also feel like I am generally pretty square on with myself, consistently myself in interviews with employers. And by that I mean I'm like relentlessly informal, and I forget my words regularly, and I'll call myself out for it. So I'm a little self-deprecating, and I'm very honest about my lack of technical abilities, though I've been, working around in the technical space for a long time, and so many of the jobs that I go for as a community manager, when I was applying, I was mostly applying for community management jobs
Mhm.
in the tech space. And I was very honest with people, and when I applied outside that space, like I applied for to be a community manager with Scout Motor Vehicles, and I applied to, let's see, there's a few different places. I applied to Epic Games, which actually I think I dodged a bullet with that one. But I applied for a bunch of places that, my community management background was not in cars or in video games or any of these sort of things. And I always was very honest. I mean, for one, they could look at my resume and they could tell. But I would just tell people like, hey, look, I have a hunger, and I want to do these things, and I can learn about these spaces. These are things I'm interested in. And when it came to being in the tech field, I'm like, look, I've worked around developers for a long time, and you need someone who is not a developer. I have these other skills that I can bring. I can network. I can build community. I can help. I can work alongside developers to create content or create content myself. Create content feels kind of a silly thing to say, but I can make videos, and I can write, and I can
And you could
and I
podcast.
can yeah, do podcasts. I can interview. And actually, I think that's another thing that, sorry to it's not too much of a left turn. It's still about interviews, but something that I feel like really helped me with interviewing is sitting on the interviewer side of the chair, because interviewing loads of people for this podcast let me kind of see what it's like to ask questions, and how to come up with a bunch of questions to ask people,
Mhm.
and when to butt in and ask a question, and when to let someone sort of free flow, and how to understand people, and how to even just kind of talk with strangers. Because plenty of people that we interviewed I had never met before, especially the first season. That was mostly Jason's found most of our guests for that season. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it's
no
it's
question in there for you, Jason, but
no,
that
that's
was
fine though. It's true though, and you know I I remember growing up hearing the phrase, not told to me directly, but just spoken culturally, don't dress for the job you want. Don't dress for the job you have, dress for the job you want. But there's something kind of true about that with how you present yourself too. It's like yourself the present yourself in the fashion that you want to bring to work every day. Like if you have to modify yourself that much to fit the job, it's not a good fit. You want to, and there is something to be said for work persona. There's, our slightly, hair down, unhinged version that might be a little bit more appropriate for, guys' night or what have you that we're not going to bring to the office, but it's still fundamentally you that goes to work because if you have to modify yourself every day to go to work, you're going to be pretty miserable. And sooner or later you're going to burn out, or even if you can keep that act up, um, your employer sooner or later is going to be unhappy because who they got is not who they thought they were getting. And this is something back when I ran the internship program for many years, something I did with every interview. And it sounds a little nefarious, but it was for everyone's benefit. Is I would give no emotional feedback. I am a scary person to be job interviewed by because I can just go like stone cold and not mean, but not friendly, not either, just like complete neutral. And the reason I would do that is because people need to receive some sort of emotional feedback so they can edit their act. That's just our normal social cueing. So by cutting that off, I was cutting off what was needed for them to keep the facade up. And what would inevitably happen is that whoever was interviewing would at some point, you'd almost see the switch, go off in their brain and they go, forget it, I'm just going to be me because I can't figure out who I'm supposed to be. And then I would see who they actually were. And because that's who I wanted to see, because that's who I was going to work with. And once I actually got them, then I could, dial the neutrality back a little bit and just
Yeah.
kind of socially reward them for being themselves. And I could always tell it was them because they would get really nervous around that.
Oh, I feel bad for these poor souls in your interview seat.
Yes, but in the end, what I heard over and over from them is that it prepared them for job interviews, but it also there were a few where they're just like, you know what? I don't think I want to do that. And that's actually good. That's what a job interview is for. You are also interviewing the company.
That's
And
right.
if you
Yeah.
have to contort yourself into a shape to fit that job role, you're not going to be happy.
I think that's a really good point. It's your opportunity to ask the employer questions to learn more about that, and you're exactly right. Like you have to you have to be willing to bend, but you don't have to be willing to contort, like you said, I think. So, ask them questions and figure out what the actual role is going to be like, so you can have a better understanding if it's going to be right for you. And don't make it easy for them. They're not making it easy for you. They're asking you questions and they're checking you out and trying to decide if you're a right fit. So the door goes both ways.
You would often ask in this podcast about red flags and those sorts of questions, and I'm
Yeah.
curious if you have any that you've experienced. And I want to briefly say that I had one. I've had a few, but my favorite, the one I laughed the hardest at, was a developer relations role that I interviewed for, and I asked about work-life balance, and the guy started talking about how he would take emails at 2 a.m. He would take phone calls at 2 a.m. from the CEO on a Sunday. And like, this is a 24/7 job. You will have to be plugged in at all times. You don't ever get a break in this industry. A developer relations, you have to be available 24/7, 365. And I'm like, that's a you problem. That's not that. No, no. And I checked with I know DevRels, and they're like, what planet is he from? Because that's a really good way to destroy yourself doing that. So I was like, I think no.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very clear the sort of overworking. I mean, obviously tech can be super competitive, and that has been a behavior throughout the past. But I think now it's not that it's gotten like super chill, but people are past that like work till you drop sort of phase. Not well.
I guess you didn't see the news out of San Francisco then.
Oh no, I did not.
996 culture. They're now pushing for 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. six days a week. And this is also in an article that was talking about how San Francisco's made a real comeback. We can tell because the rent prices have gone up. Like, you
Mm.
already have the highest rent prices in North America. How is this an improvement?
Yeah.
But that's an island of weird. To your
So
point, that's an island of weird.
no, you're right, and clearly there's still the grind culture out there for some, but that's the thing too. Being aware that would absolutely be a red flag for me. I luckily didn't apply to too many places where I experienced that as a as a thing. Although I did say I applied to Epic, and that's one reason why I feel like I dodged a bullet there because I was excited about the idea of getting into the gaming world. I was and getting to continue with community stuff. The job that I applied for would have been for Fortnite Creative. I would have had to drive into the office, which is another a little bit of a red flag for me now because I've been working
Mhm.
remotely for 5 years and I really enjoy it. But I went against my best judgment and I applied there anyways. I knew I had a friend that worked there and I said, like let me just give this a go. But I actually never even got called in for an interview, so I guess I didn't make the cut. But I think I think that I should have foreseen the red flags because I went on Glassdoor and I
Mhm.
read through some of just like their ratings and some of the experiences from community people there, and they would have been happy to burn me out. They would have been happy to get all they could out of me in a few months' time and then kick me to the curb. So
Yeah.
I do think, while I didn't experience that directly because I wasn't involved, I wasn't brought into an interview and didn't spot the red flag. The red flags were there beforehand, and
Yeah.
I ignored them. And luckily, I didn't get brought in because who knows?
Yeah, and I think on the topic of red flags, I also have to point out there's a lot of people who are really discouraged by, here we are heading into another round of, layoffs as a hobby, you know, season and all the problems with that. But the warnings that have been coming out since 2022 and have gone ignored is that, yes, AI is a bubble. The technology itself is not necessarily a bubble. There's lots of cool stuff that we're going to see, but the we're going to replace humans with computers and all these jobs are just going to go away and we're just going to have computers do it instead is not real, has not been real, and it continues to fail to stand the test. And I find it interesting how many promoted posts on LinkedIn, and the fact it's promoted should be a huge red flag itself. Promoted posts are like, well, this is happening right now. It's like, no, what's happening right now? And this is an important thing to remember if you're feeling discouraged about the AI seeming to take everybody's jobs. What's happening right now is that companies, specifically investors and companies that have made big bets on AI, they know on some level that this is not working because the outputs are not getting better. The we're not replacing people. The things it's good at, it's getting better at doing, but it's never been good at replacing a human. All the utilities for AI have been a human using it to do the job they already had better. As one of my colleagues put it, if you're using AI to do less work, you're doing it wrong. You should be doing different work instead. And the companies that are replacing people with AI are taking on and are already seeing massive legal risks, regulatory problems, compliance violations, quality control issues, um, to an unprecedented scale. So, what's going to wind up happening is that they're going to discover that they didn't replace anybody and now they are missing their core capacity and they're going to be desperate to hire people again. This is what happens every time we have a bubble. is it winds up swinging back around to what is honestly going to be another long-term candidates market like we got after .com. It was like, what, 10 years where the candidates basically owned the whole space. So do not feel like you have to compromise and settle for the career that you don't want because, well, AI is just going to eat my job, so I guess I just have to settle to be a thrall. No, you don't. We have to ride this out. That may require going off script a little while. But at some point, no, your job's still going to be there because we're still going to need graphics designers and copy editors and software engineers and legal teams, etc. We're going to need all of them still.
Absolutely. I think that there's always the potential for some things for some methods of doing things to be made more efficient
Yes.
or quicker, and that, like you said, it's going to enable people to be able to get certain like menial tasks of their jobs done. But then when they end up with that time, they can invest that time then in other things to continue to continue honing their craft in different ways, I guess. But
Mhm.
it's not going to replace people. But I do think people who are able to use to use AI to do their jobs better, and that's not going to be everybody. I'm obviously biased. I work for a company that sells AI to city planners, and city planners are
Mhm.
able to use this AI to look through massive code banks like city code and find answers
Mhm.
quicker and get back to their constituents, to their community quicker, or give their community a way to, look through the code and get certain answers to what they're doing. And these sort of when I talk to city planners, I explain to them, this is a tool. This isn't like a get out of doing work sort of card.
Mhm.
It's one of many, and it means that you're going to have to go back in and you're going to have to rewrite aspects of your code to make it clearer,
Mhm.
or you're going to have to speak, hold meetings with the community. You're going to have to go out and meet people in their neighborhoods. You have all this extra time, and that
Mhm.
means that you have other things that you can now do with that time in your role, because
Yeah.
now you're not answering someone who writes in and asks if they have, what size their privacy fence needs to be. Now you're
Mhm.
not having to write someone at such and such address and tell them the rules or if you're a code enforcement officer, you're not having to, uh, you know, write someone a message and tell them the rules for picking out their trash. You can kind of you're able to do it through a program now. You're able
Yeah.
to kind of send around a vehicle that's going to take a picture and see if their trash is in the wrong space, and then it'll kind of line up a series
Mhm.
of messages for you to then review and see if this is indeed a violation. But because
Yeah.
it's doing all of this stuff that enhances your job, it's now your responsibility to figure out how to work with this
Mhm.
and continue to help the community in different ways that you weren't able to before.
Yeah.
So,
I
it's
think a key takeaway on this is efficiency always creates more work than you had to begin with. So if you take a team of 5 people and you give them the tools to do their job more efficiently, if they do it right, when you're done, you're going to need a team of 7 people doing twice the work that they previously were doing because expectations go up, the deliverables have to go up faster. You wind up needing to do more things. So it's important to ask yourself, what work do I want to be doing? Because like this is a thing with software engineering, we are finding pretty ubiquitously now. No, this thing is not capable of handling software engineering at all. It's great at prototyping, and that's where it stops. We can
right.
use it to sometimes find a bug in the code, or sometimes fetch an interesting code example, sometimes generate a little snippet, but we spend more time babysitting the AI than we actually gain being sped up by it. The productivity gains are not proving themselves like the corporate sponsored studies would suggest. And so, as I put it to one person, it's like, would you rather write code or babysit an eternally uninformed intern that never gets better? Which would you rather do? Ask any software engineer, would you rather code review or write code? And every last one of them is going to say, I'd rather write code. Okay, so that means the thing you need to start applying the AI to is the part of the job you don't want to have to deal with. And find ways to make that go faster so that you can focus on your core competencies better. Not how can I speed up the thing I enjoy so I can get back to the thing I hate. that's a key part. And the software engineers who seem to work the best with AI are using it to, for example, help them do better code review, help them spot security issues, help them debug things, the stuff that drives us crazy.
Yeah, well, you still have to be creative and you still have to interact. You can't just let it drive and do everything for you, you know.
Right.
That's where people are kind of getting wrong. But it is a massively, well, you know what? I'll say this too. It is not all black or white. You know, it's not all
Mm-hmm.
bad, it is not all good. It is very
Oh, yeah.
much gray. And it's hard to talk about it in absolutes and talk about it as this amorphous thing without talking about specific tasks that it's doing,
Right.
you know? Because you can't really
Exactly.
assess if it's good for the task unless we talk about the actual task or it, you know, the optics of it now are that it's removing certain potential jobs that folks can have.
Yeah.
But I would say that it's not all doom and gloom. There's still plenty out there for you to do, you know, and
Mm-hmm. And
I
you
think
can, and I think my point is like you can take some time to learn it while you're doing your job search, but don't feel
yes.
like you have to figure out how to do your entire job with AI looking over your shoulder the whole time. It actually is okay if you're holding on and expanding on your core competencies because, by the way, when AI is done right, it's not that difficult to use or learn. It's like a
No.
calculator. If you know your math skills, calculator takes you 5 minutes to figure out. This is something you can figure out in your role when you get there as well. If you're like, oh, where do I start? How do I integrate that? Don't do the AI companies work for them. They don't know how to. They don't know how it's going to help you either. In most cases, wait until you know what it is you're working on, and then start saying, okay, well, what have my coworkers done that has worked? What has my company done that has worked? How can I start building on that? So don't feel like you have to throw everything you learned away and go learn this whole new, learn how to, hold the hand of this robot, instead
Right.
because it's going to do your job for you. You can still build on your core competencies because your core competencies are still relevant.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a really good point. And that's going to give you the understanding, the domain understanding to then know how to use this to help you. You know, you can't just
Mm-hmm.
like use AI to, I'm not just going to be like, oh, okay, now that I have AI, I can go do surgery or, like take on a role that I have no business taking on. You know, I know
Right.
what
I've never coded before in my life. I'm going to use it to build an app and ship it. Yeah, no, don't do that.
Right, right. There's these things are much more complex, but
Mhm.
with becoming just a basic AI user,
Yeah.
you can get pretty far and you can do plenty that can help you out in your day to day, you know.
Hmm.
You can use it and it's new to all of us. It's the way it's being used right now. Like it's not like there's loads of people out there who have just miles more experience than you know, and even if they do, it's like we said, a lot of the AI tools that are out there, they're you can learn them relatively quickly. You know,
Yeah.
they're not super complex, complicated tools. But it is good to have if you are going to start using it, try to teach yourself a little bit about, look up some posts on AI ethics and how to use AI responsibly and try to
Hmm.
really think about it from this angle because
Yeah.
like Jason said, you can end up in some pretty hot water and
Yes.
it have some liability issues if you're using it
Hmm.
sort of without a mind for without not using it thoughtfully is what I'll say.
Yeah. On the orthogonal topic of AI and job searching, resumes. Um, so for me, I did my resume entirely myself. I had all these people that were suggesting like rewrite your resume with AI, and I never wanted to. Like I'm also a bit of a slow adopter of technology, always, just as a rule. That's just my personality. I prefer to see how it's going to shake out first and then use it. And in this case, I'm glad I did because there's a lot of recruiters that are like, oh, AI resume, which like we won't get into how hypocritical that is sometimes, but so I had one resume that I edited into two different forms. Like I had my software engineering form and I had my management type form. Um, how about you? Like, did you have like the multiple versions? Did you use AI at all to improve parts of your resume, or was it like old school, hand tooled? How'd you do it?
Yeah, mine was old school because I just kind of reformed a different resume that I had. I then contacted some friends and asked them to take a look at it. Some people that I knew were had a good eye for this sort of stuff. I have plenty of friends that are editors, and my sister is actually or previously was a job advisor, so that or career advisor, excuse me. I guess that's synonymous, but so I had her also give me some advice. But more important for my role, like I do think that it was important for me to have a resume. I certainly had to send the resume everywhere that I applied to. But it was important for me to write good cover letters because the roles that I were going for were very were community-based roles and I have to speak to people regularly. Oftentimes the roles that I were going for, they had like a questionnaire that I had to fill out, sometimes put me in scenarios and stuff like that. And then I also I found that a lot of places, or that one way that I could stand out was to create a portfolio. Because I was a community manager for developers, and plenty of developers have portfolios, they have websites, and some community people do, but not all community people do. So I thought that this was a good opportunity for me to create a website and to highlight that, hey, I'm not a developer, but I'm somewhat technical and I can get something up and running on a web page that looks pretty good. So I went through the process of creating that. So I had this trifecta of resume, cover letter, and portfolio that I was sending
Yeah.
off to loads of places. I did personalize my cover letters, but I had somewhat of a template that I was honing and coming back to. I copied and pasted all of my, or I made copies of every cover letter that I sent out so that I could go and return to one. If there was a company that was similar to another, then I would kind of, be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna apply into another gaming company, let's say. Let me go back to this one and modify that.
Yeah.
So I think my resume I thought about a little bit less. I sort of like said it and then forgot it.
Yeah.
But I made it myself. Had some folks review it, and it was a handmade endeavor.
Yeah. Yeah, I did much the same thing with the cover letters, and I definitely saw I got interviews more often well, there's two things I had to do to get interviews. One was cover letter tended to be important, not always, but it tended to be. And interestingly, when I couldn't muster up the strength to write a cover letter, it probably wasn't that good a fit anyway, because it just was uninspired by the job, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
But then the other thing I noticed was that I started getting a lot more callbacks when I started adding my recommendations into the resume. That whole, keep it to 1 to 2 pages is all well and good to a point, but it's your one chance to be, and honestly, most recruiters don't read them. They plug them into the system so that those recommendations had keywords in there that they were looking for. Because the other thing I will add is one thing I took away from this season that seemed to be resonating over and over was it actually is not practical to modify your resume for every job. In fact, I would go out and be bold enough to say, don't do that. Because it's not going to improve your chances that much, if at all, but what it will do is going to burn you out. You're custom tailoring that resume every single time. Here's the thing, that resume is going to get a total of 5 seconds of attention if you're dealing with a human. Split second if you're dealing with a computer. Yes, AI ATSs exist. They advertise. I found it hilarious because I saw a denial post, the standard denial post from the recruiter. That's mythical. And then 3 posts below is an ad from one of the big 3 ATSs advertising that we can weed out you can weed out candidates using AI automatically. It's like, this is absolutely a thing. So do not, if a recruiter tells you that does not exist, they're either ignorant of it and too ethical to imagine anybody doing that, or they're lying through their teeth. But the
Right.
thing is, it's not worth trying to get past that bot because the only people who are going to get past that bot are the people who are carefully calibrating to basically be an AI candidate, and they're not going to make it past the post of the interview. The people who actually are good at the job can't clear that fence. We've already seen that. I mean, who was it? Todd Lucas, I think it was. I'm trying to remember. He applied to thousands of jobs and didn't hear
Yeah.
back from any of them, and he customized every single resume. Get a connection into the company, get introduced into the company. That seems to be the only way to get a job. Like, the front door does not work.
And I don't know how ATS works, but I imagine that the recruiter sets some boundaries that they then have the AI scan through through the applications and look for. So if the
Mm-hmm.
recruiter is put in these keywords and this is what the recruiter is like dead set on having, then yeah, if you get rejected by the AI that the recruiter said to ignore these words, then that recruiter is
Mm-hmm.
probably like not really, yeah, it's probably not a place you really want to work for. You know, if they have what they want and they're going to be stubborn about it in that sort of sense, then
Mm-hmm.
you know,
And as soon as
then
they realize you aren't exactly that person, you're not going to have a shot anyway. I
right.
actually started doing something weird, and I had better luck with this. I actually started going to the ATS websites and reading through the marketing material like I was a company.
Oh,
And here's the thing I discovered: Greenhouse, AI. Workday, definitely AI, all AI. Lever, not, at least as of early this year, was not AI. Ashby, not AI. So, like, you can look up a lot of these because a lot of times they're using a subdomain off of it. And I started there was a tool I was using that I really liked that basically just automated searching for any web pages, just using Google, searching for web pages on Ashby or on Lever with the keywords of the job you wanted that had been posted in the last 24 hours. I found a lot more interesting jobs that way than any job board. And I would start going only for those ATSs I could stand to fill out. I would not, after I think 2 months into the job search, I would not apply to anybody who was using Workday because it just drove me crazy. It burned me out. I hated having to deal with re-entering every single thing from my resume and knowing that it was going to be auto-rejected. So I just stopped bothering. That's actually okay. You can decide if a company's going to use this ATS that's going to cause me to take half an hour to fill out a form. Just skip it. It's okay.
yeah, yeah. You know, I feel like it's all about like it, and it's easy for us to say, or it's, I don't say it's easy for us to say, but like, you know, part of finding a job is like juggling the what you ultimately want, and also sometimes you just need to have the money at the time too.
Mhm.
So I don't judge anybody for having to, you know, apply somewhere that is doesn't meet your standards for the moment, you know, because you just gotta live. You gotta
Yeah.
make money in the interim. But I think it is good to just know sort of like and like you said, some places are just super annoying to apply to. Sometimes it just takes too much time to sort of invest that amount of time to apply to one place. If they're making you jump over hurdles, then your time might be spent better, you know, somewhere else. But
Yeah. Yeah, and it really is okay. I was so worried in this job search that I was going to miss the perfect opportunity because I wasn't jumping through the hoops. And then I eventually discovered that, and I've heard this throughout our podcast, it's like ultimately, if you're having to jump through that many hoops, you're probably not going to get in. And so it's okay to say this doesn't feel right. It's if you have the energy, that's okay. Go for it. If you want to go for it, go for it. But I think the thing that doesn't get talked about a lot when you're dealing with the especially long term unemployment is just the you run out of motivation. You just have an absolute debt of motivation. I've heard this from so many people. You get tired. And no, you're not crazy. Um, when you're job searching for a long period of time, you just have less motivation a lot of times. And because you're having to use it to not only in the job search, but also on all of the concerns in life that just got that much more complicated for you. And the emotional effects on it. Depression is very common, especially when you're dealing with layoffs. Layoffs have been found by psychology to be as traumatic as bereavement and divorce. So it's actually okay that you're not okay. That's something I had to learn. It was okay that I wasn't okay. It was okay that I didn't have the energy to do everything I wanted to do. And so you kind of, at somewhere along the way, you start needing to budget. And if you're budgeting your energy, you're budgeting your motivation, and if it came down to, I can either apply to 50 jobs that I hate today and be burned out for the rest of the day and just staring through the television, or I can apply to 20 jobs that I can stand the process because I'm not having to do it with Workday. And when I'm done, I can go read a book. The second outcome is going to be better for my mental health. So know what you have the energy to do, and if you just go, you know what, I just not in the mood to write one more cover letter. Okay, that's fine. That's okay, especially because if you push through, that cover letter is probably going to be crap anyway. It's okay.
Yeah, I think you're right. You can totally get burnt out from just job searching and be easy on yourself. Like there's gosh, I don't remember how many places I applied to, but certainly hundreds of places that I applied to. Even when I had got my contract role with Ordinal, and I was lucky at that point when I got my contract role, though I did have a lot of relief and felt like I could give myself some space to then because I had some money coming into the bank, and that made me feel like, oh, thank you. I have a little space to lay back, but not everybody has that, has stuff like that come up. And I know that, I would say though, regardless, still give yourself space, give yourself the ability to recharge. You're going on interviews, you're writing cover letters, you're doing a lot of work, and you need time to recover from that, and it'll make you better if you're able to kind of relax and recharge and let some of the experience settle in.
Yeah.
But look, Jason, I realize we're kind of coming up on an hour here. We've done an extra long episode, which is good. We
That's
have
all
we
right.
both interview each other, and
We had two
this is
guests.
a way to cap it off. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know the score, I think, how we generally end this, but do you have any closing advice that you would give to our listeners?
I would just say don't neglect the other things in your life that give you joy, especially because you never know where a job could come out of. Just briefly, I have to mention I got one of my jobs through a Python local user group. Someone I met there knew someone else who mentioned me to somebody else, contacted me out of the blue and said, "Hey, would you like to interview for my company?" And I got that job. Another job I got through a video gaming community. Believe it or not, I spent 8 months. I made my part-time job a video game. That was what I did because I felt like I could contribute to it and contribute to the group, advance goals, and I got a job through that. I literally met someone through that gave me a job. So it's okay to have hobbies. It's helpful to have hobbies. Even if you don't get a job opportunity out of it, you will have people speaking life into you. So make time and space for the things that you love still, because that's where you're going to draw life from, and you never know where an opportunity is going to come from.
Oh, I think that's great advice. And you spoke to the networking aspect of it too, but when you combine the superpowers of being passionate about something with community and networking, then you end up meeting people and getting excited about the things that you're talking about together. And that excitement is contagious, and those people want to help you. You build community with them. and they are looking for like-minded people. So I that totally resonates with me. And I'd say my advice would be like keep your eyes open for unexpected opportunities and chances to make yourself stand out. Like go out on a limb and do things that you maybe have never done or thought of. And I'm thinking specifically right now of this podcast. Like I was given an opportunity. Jason came to me with this idea, wanted me involved. And I hadn't done something exactly like this before, but I didn't, the payout wasn't like a clear payoff that like, oh, if I do this, then I will get this opportunity. But I did see the possibility of it. I saw it as a chance to meet and talk to a lot of people that are working different roles and get advice from them, which was cool. But also to meet them and to potentially get a job working with them. I had an interview with one of our interviewees from past season, or I interviewed with Mozilla. Did not get the role, which is fine, but it was a great experience, and it would not have happened had I not gone out on a limb and done all of this. This got me better at interviewing, as I mentioned before. So this gave me the chance to network, to get better at interviewing, to get lots of job interviewing advice, and to add another skill to my resume too. Now I'm a podcaster. I've interviewed people, and this is a new thing I can do. So
Absolutely. And building on that, I have to say that reminds me that the dumbest piece of advice I ever got from a recruiter was a guy who told me to, quote, stay in my lane. Just pick something and, because no one's going to want someone that can do all these different things. Find one thing to do and only do that thing. And I'm like, no, because you never know what skills even if you're in your quote unquote lane, you never know what skills are going to wind up needing. It's like, okay, sure, we need you to do the thing that you can do on paper, but by the way, do you happen to know how to edit a video? Because we've got this video that we need to. Do you happen to know that? Like, actually, I do. So you never know.
yeah, that's a really good point. I think like specialization is great, and if that's what you do, then fantastic. But even specialized people, everything is integrated. Everyone like you need to learn to work with other people, and it's good to be interested in what they do and to have an understanding of what they do. This is how you find synergies and new pathways to like doing things better. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's a bit of a cop out, is what I'd say. It's probably his way of saying, I love doing X and I don't want to do Y, Z. I don't want to do the rest of the alphabet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
probably.
that's fine, but
That's
so
his
it
lane.
doesn't
He can
hurt
stay
to
in it if he
have,
wants to.
yeah, yeah. Doesn't hurt to have other skills and abilities. I think it only makes you more marketable and have a better wide understanding of the world and all of that stuff. So
Absolutely. And let me just say that this has been an honor to be able to do this with you, Michael, and be able to learn all these things from our awesome guests and, from you, and be able to share some of my own insights. And to anyone else who's listening out there, hang in there. It does get better. This is a weird time, but weird times don't last forever. And the pendulum always swings back the other way. So hang in there.
yeah, well said, Jason. And I'm also really, really grateful that you brought me in to do this, and really grateful for your friendship, and to really grateful for all of our guests, and to be able to learn alongside you. And I'm just so happy that we both have jobs now. It's awesome.
Yes,
So,
awesome. Yep.
so listeners, go out there and find a job, and feel free to contact me if you need someone to talk to. And
Same.
excited for y'all and excited for us.
Absolutely. To the future.
All right. See y'all.